feel like this is something we all feared would happen. And now Ari is just actually explaining this. So, as always, if you don't know who this is like the new number one outside Ian Rapport and Adam Schefter. This is the new like number one like person who puts out information, like leaks news, leaks information. He's becoming like one of the best in the industry. And when I say that, I actually mean like he's actually one of the best, like respectful, like you can actually respect the stuff he puts out. Which is kind of crazy because usually the NFL world nowadays is just full of nonsense. But I gotta give it a lot of props because we haven't had someone like this in a very long time, who you can actually truly trust and be like, wow, that's actually a non-biased take. This is whatever. But here's, and again, glazing alone, let's go ahead and listen to what he says about Zac Taylor and Duke Tobin actually, because this is what we all feared, and it looks like it might be sadly happening.
Payton once just stepped down all of a sudden. People think that might eventually happen in New Orleans. People thought it would have happened last year. It didn't, but that is one to watch for sure at the end of the year in New Orleans. I want to address a couple of other ones that have been brought up. Let me start with Cincinnati first. Zac Taylor, their de facto GM is Duke Tobin. The way it was explained to me by a lot of people within the industry is the Bengals, as long as those guys are under contract for a number of years left, they just don't like to eat that money on coaching staffs and those type of things. So there is a bit of a lifeline for Zac Taylor in the fact that Joe Burrow got injured again and they didn't see the full potential of the team and on and on. And they started 2-0. What could have been if Joe was healthy? I don't think anything happens there unless, again, if the players start giving up, if it just looks bad, the product isn't good, okay, fine. But at the same time, I don't think we've gotten to that point yet. And again, they have multiple years left on their contract, so I don't see it happening. The last
And that, my friend, is the one biggest fear I feel like all of us Bengals fans have. The Bengals are not going to fire Zac Taylor or Duke Tobin because they don't want to lose money. Which wouldn't shock me just because of how, the front office is and how Katie Blackburn thinks and how, in general, Mike Brown thinks, where it's all about money. It's not about success or winning. It's all about making the most money possible and just kind of, continuing to milk the machine here. Man. It's frustrating. But again, like it's like one of those things where when I first heard it, my reaction wasn't, what? That's crazy. My reaction is, that makes sense. Which, if that's the case, then like, if that's their mindset, right? And like, okay, so when is I believe Zac Taylor's contract up in 2026, I want to say. I don't believe he's gonna be like in any way gone before, yeah. So Zac Taylor's contract goes through the 2026 season. So if that's the case, man, then he's just going to be here, this year and next year, and then 2027, maybe that's when they'll go ahead and cut the guy, which is insane. So he is signing an extension after leading the team to Super Bowl. Contract with Boyd was successful, provided long-term stability for the franchise. Long-term stability, yeah. And then when is Duke Tobin's contract up? Duke Tobin. Unless it's this. Duke Tobin, okay. Okay, GMs, I know sometimes their contracts are kind of like, ugh. Like there's not like public information about them. Okay, so there's no public information, I guess, about him. Yeah, no, there's no public information about Duke Tobin, which I guess doesn't really shock me too much. But, okay. So, that's kind of what I feared. I know there was a comment from Mike Florio, what was it, like a couple weeks ago, saying Duke Tobin's going to get fired. Duke Tobin's going to get fired that week or right after the bye week. That doesn't happen, I don't know where he gets that information from, but obviously he put that out there and said it was going to happen. It didn't happen in the end. And then, of course, now, Got Ari here, which I do trust a lot more than Mike Florio. And yeah, that does make a lot of logical sense. It's the most logical take I've probably heard in a very long time on, Zac Taylor and Duke Tobin of, hey, yeah, the Brown family will not get rid of him because they don't want to lose the money. They don't want to eat the money. Frustrating. Anyway, last part he puts here, which I thought was interesting, was actually something positive toward the Bengals here, like for head coaching candidates. So let's listen up on this.
The Giants and Titans, of course, have already started their search. And the one thing that has become pretty clear, at least so far in the circles when it comes to the coaching world and the industry, is it's a heavier defensive minded candidate pool this year than offensive minded. Some of the names that have been getting the most buzz over here over these last couple of weeks, the number one name so far by far on the list that I've heard a lot about is Chris Shula, the defensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams, who there's been a bunch of people over the years who have been hired from the Rams staff, from Sean McVay, trying to get people from the Sean McVay tree. There might not be anybody who is closer to Sean McVay than Chris Shula, who has been there from the very beginning, who has known Sean McVay from before his NFL days. Those two have been tied together from the very start. He's moved up the coaching ladder on Sean McVay's staff, and that Rams defense, we saw it on Sunday versus the Seahawks, 4 interceptions of Sam Darnold. What they've done with the youth movement,
which is one of the best situation possible, that if we somehow did fire Zac Taylor, I would love to get a defensive-minded coach. I really would. And I knew I threw it out there before with Lou Anarumo. I don't think it would ever happen, but that's obviously with the perspective of getting a defensive-minded coach, right? Lou Anarumo. So we'll see. We'll see how everything shakes out in the end. But man, this is so frustrating. If we seriously keep him just because they don't want to spend the money, it's going to be frustrating, but it wouldn't shock me. It really wouldn't shock me. Like, again, hearing that doesn't shock me. It's a very, okay, yeah, no dip here, right? This is like easy. Like, of course they're not going to go ahead and do that because they don't want to eat any money. They never want to eat money. They want to try to do this as cheap as humanly possible. Anyway, tell me down below your thoughts, opinions. I'll see you guys next one. Peace out.